Years ago, a tavern was a place for the people of the area to gather. It wasn't just a drinking place like taverns are today. It was a place where people came with families and children played outdoors, or they got a treat. The parents bought them a treat, maybe a bottle of orange crush soda or whatever, and the woman got to talk about what went on during the week, what their activities were, and the men got to talk about, most of them were farmers, so they got to talk about things about farming. The men would often play a game called Kuya, which is a Belgian card game. And the women just sat and they visited, and the children played outdoors. Most of them spoke Walloon. They didn't speak English. I was so thankful that I could understand Walloon because my grandmother had immigrated from Belgium, my father's mother, and she never learned to speak English, so I got to understand Walloon. Alex Everard was one of the first pioneers that came to live in Nemours. He came with his two sons. He had Francis and John, and they came in the 1850s, and they established a place there in Nemours. When they came, they erected log cabins and lived in the log cabins for a number of years. And then they eventually built a tavern. And the tavern included a general store, a post office, and they also had a farm with it in which they raised stud horses. And then Alex and his sons donated the land to build a church next door. They had a large family, and as the generations continued, the family always owned the land. The tavern was always handed down to somebody from the family. And my husband and I were the last of the Belgian people, I should say, the Alec Everard and the Chaudoir family to run it. We ran it for 57 years, and when my husband died in 2000, I put it up for sale. And eventually I did sell it in 2016, and it's the first time that it has not been in the Chaudoir Everard family. But we still own the land that was homesteaded by Alec Everard, and I hope it stays within our family.
The men, they used to go to Mass to the tavern before Mass. So they all asked, well, was your dad a drunk? No, that was a trading post. Remember, years ago, we had no telephone, we had no radio, so that was a meeting center. It was a meeting center of 20 minutes before Mass, and they could ask a guy, have you got 6 bags of oats that I can borrow? Or have you got 5 young pigs? Or have you got some heifers to sell? Or then during the trashing season, they used to have to find 8, 10, 12 men to come and help trash. And they'd ask the neighbors, well, can you come? And who can? And they'd plan their things. It was a round table session that they had before Mass. See, it seemed funny, but that's the way it was. Because I used to be there with my dad, and he used to have the big sticks on the bar with them like a pretzel, and he had a spittoon on the floor. They had the nickel beer, and those men all met there to talk. It was like a newspaper.
There was right here the church and tavern on both sides. And, well, we'd all go to church, huh? And then, boy, right after Mass, the men, boy, they'd hurry up. Some would go to that tavern, some would go to that tavern. And then there was a room here in the Chaudoir over here, in the room where the woman would sit. Women couldn't go in the tavern at that time. The men would all go to the tavern, and the women would go and sit. They had benches, and they'd sit there and talk, And then after a while, Mom would get up and say, Frank, Ali, time to go now. All right, one more, he said, then we go.
We're very close to one another, and the priests were our neighbors. And we had classes in the summertime. The children would have nuns come for 2 weeks, and they would have catechism classes. And during the winter time, we also had catechism classes, but it was just taught by some of the late people in the parish. But there was a shortage of rooms for catechism classes, so we held one of the classes in the tavern on Saturday morning. And after the classes, a lot of the children would come into the tavern, and I always had potato chips and candy bars. They would use the bathroom because the church had no bathroom, so they would come and use our bathroom, and they would have a treat. And that was their recess. A lot of the children still remember that, and they'll come and they talk to me about that.